Today on Appointed to Promote, I will recap the 2024 Climate Change Conference and ask the question, how does the Trump presidency affect it? Stay tuned. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Appointed to Promote Television, where, as always, I cover for you current events via the biblical lens, while also covering Bible teaching and while never forgetting my main mission of this channel, which is promoting the gospel of Jesus Christ. And as always, I'm Ed Walsh, your host. Happy to be here and blessed to have all of you here for what today is going to be my latest Bible prophecy update, and of which will be the third consecutive year of which I have recapped for you the annual Climate Change Conference, of which this year was held in Baku, Azerbaijan, from the dates of November the 11th until November 22nd, 2024. Now, probably the biggest bit of news to affect the COP29 climate conference was the recent re-election of President Donald Trump in the United States. And why is it that I say that? Well, that would be because of Trump's consistent comments on the topic of climate change, of which here are just a few of his remarks. Take a look.
One of the most urgent tasks, not only for our movement, but for our country, is to decisively defeat the climate hysteria hoax. The ocean is rising, it's coming, it's within 300 years we're going to gain 1/100th of an inch in the ocean and have a little more beachfront property. It's going to be a terrible thing. No, it's a hoax. The whole thing is it's so crazy. In the meantime, our factories can't perform. They want us to use wind, intermittent wind. Darling, I'd like to watch the president tonight on television. No, you can't. The wind isn't blowing, right? The wind isn't blowing. There's no television tonight, darling. The wind isn't blowing. And by the way, our house went down to about 30% of the value because we're near a windmill that makes a lot of noise, kills all our birds, and ruins the landscape. Other than that, it's a wonderful thing for the environment. These people are crazy.
So as you can see, my friends, it is Donald Trump in typical Donald Trump fashion who is heavily aware of this climate change scam and personally stands as a direct front against it, as well as the push for globalism, of which to any good Christian who knows the future prophecies of the Bible can decipher from this secular way of saying what this truly is. A one-world governing body that will eventually one day become the government by which the Antichrist himself will reign, whereof which it is the topic of globalism which is pushed today by the United Nations, or should I say the United Abominations. And let us remember that during President Trump's first term, which began back in 2016, it was President Trump himself who pulled the United States out of the Paris Climate Agreement. And so what is the Paris Climate Agreement? In simple terms, for the Paris Agreement's central aim is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by pursuing the efforts to limit the global temperature rise this century to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. So the question then becomes, will President Trump once more pull the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement? With that said, let us note these key words at the beginning of this year's COP29 conference, when it was the United Nations 9th Secretary General, none other than the communist and Marxist Antonio Guterres, who addressed the attendees by saying this.
International cooperation centered on the Paris Agreement is indispensable to climate action. Amidst geopolitical divisions and uncertainties, the world needs countries to come together here in Baku. And so I appeal directly to ministers and negotiators. Soften hard lines, navigate the path through your differences, and keep your eyes on the bigger picture. Never forget what it is at stake. This is a COP to deliver justice in the face of climate catastrophe.
Never forget what's at stake? Well, the only thing that's ultimately really at stake is the dinner that I put on my table once or twice a week. For we already know that they look to do away with beef consumption by telling us it's bad for the planet. So with that said, and with the Trump shadow hanging largely over the COP29 summit, it was none other than Alex Newman and his fellow cohorts from the New American Magazine who were on site at the COP29 event, where they looked to ask people the big question.
We're getting reactions from attendees at COP about Donald Trump and his win. What do you think it means for climate change and the movement?
Well, I don't see any hope for Donald Trump caring about the environment. We're not asking for aid. We're not asking for charity. We're asking for reparations. I don't think Donald Trump will see that, but I hope he does. But I believe in our comrades in the United States that they can convince their fellow Americans to actually care about the planet, care about the global south, and care about our future survival.
Yeah. Why do you call them comrades?
Well, I am a progressive, so comrades.
Comrades, all right.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Can I ask you about Donald Trump?
No, it's okay.
Oh, come on, man. You got to have an opinion.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions.
Then tell us. Come on, tell America. I think of Donald Trump's win. What does that mean for climate change?
Oh, it's the worst. It's catastrophe. Almost.
What do you think about Donald Trump's win on November 5th?
I'm with the American media. We're just trying to get people's reaction to the election of Donald Trump. What do you think it means for the climate project?
Okay, you have any thoughts?
Very amazing.
Pretty amazing?
Yes.
You like Trump?
Yes, I like very. I love you, Trump.
Regardless of what's going on Capitol Hill, I think we have such a strong foundation that it's not going to really stop what's already at that tipping point, so to speak.
Questions from attendees at COP. What do you think about Donald Trump's win? What does that mean for climate?
Speaking as an Australian, yeah, we're not enjoying it.
People spoke, just like I'm elected, President Trump was elected, right? He gets to choose what direction, and we're going to continue doing this work.
All right, final question. When polled, most Americans say they don't care about climate change. They don't even want to spend a single dollar more on their utility bills to help save the climate. Do you think, as a leader in the United States, should they be forced to kind of go along with an agenda that they don't support?
That's a little bit of a loaded question, right? I would say this, all of our power runs off of solar in our city. We actually save money on that.
We're getting reactions from attendees at COP. What do you think of Donald Trump and his win? What does it mean for climate change?
I mean, that's a disaster. But
yeah, I think Trump is a catastrophe. So
Why is it?
whatever he does.
Excuse me, we're getting reactions from attendees at COP about Donald Trump. What do you think his win means for the movement?
oh my God.
No.
Yeah, I cannot comment on that one.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts?
On Trump?
Yeah, what does it mean for climate change?
So my friends, there's absolutely no surprise that you'd have most of the people attending a conference like this who are no friends of Donald Trump. Now, as for what it was that they did get accomplished at COP29, here are a few of the headlines. First, it is holding countries responsible, especially that of Western nations who have largely been blamed for the climate change hoax, and of which the United Nations is now actually asking for reparations from. Where have we heard that before? Next was securing support for climate change from the tech sector, followed by creating measures to help use nuclear science and technology to fight climate change, and then there's education, of which indoctrinating our children to believe in the man-made global warming hypothesis, as well as teaching them to see the United Nations as the solution to that alleged problem, is once again taking center stage at this year's UN Climate Summit. And my friends, that's really the big problem of all, of which Alex Newman himself said the goal is simple: to foist climate change indoctrination on children in schools worldwide. And of course, of which the key COP29 goal of all was to agree to how much money richer and more developed nations should provide poorer, less developing ones to help them fight climate change, which of course is a critical plank in efforts to limit the damage caused by global rising temperatures, they so say. For aside from the COP29 conference itself comes the push towards indoctrinating the climate scam and hoax into our health via the medical industry. as is now taking shape and even witnessed by this video from the European Network on Climate, Health and Education. Check it out.
Increasingly, climate change is harming people's health. You could say it's the largest health emergency of our time, and I do need to be ready to help tackle this challenge.
Having climate and health training as part of our curriculum will equip us with the knowledge and the skills to both prevent and respond to health impacts of climate change.
That's why we're establishing the European Network on Climate and Health Education to increase teaching on this critical subject in medical schools across Europe and beyond.
This network will enhance our ability to collaborate and share best practices across universities.
This new collaboration will help train the next generation of medics with the skills they need to treat the health impacts of climate change and deliver more sustainable healthcare.
Right now, many universities across the world don't teach about the health impacts of climate change. This leaves a gap in our knowledge and readiness to help patients. I'm inspired to see that this is changing.
So, my friends, I don't know what else to say. I mean, what is it that's eventually going to happen here? I mean, are we going to go to the doctor with a health issue? And he simply tells us to go home, kill 2 cows, and call him in the morning? Now, unfortunately, I'm not here to get into specifics today about why climate change is a hoax. But if you want to know more about that topic, I have provided it for you all in what was then known as my 54th episode of the channel on climate change. So if you'd like to check that out, I'll leave a link up above as well as a link in the description box for this program for you to see more. For at the end of the day, my friends, the climate change hoax is all about power and control of the entire globe, as well as you, the people, and your everyday lives. For ultimately, in attacking the climate crisis, what one is really doing is attacking the very earth that the Lord has given us and supplied us with richly, as it pertains to natural resources, such as oil, gas, meat, and farming for the survival of mankind. Not only that, but have you ever given any thought as to the reason why gold and silver have often been amongst the most successful and trusted forms of monetary investments for both preserving and growing wealth, likely in human history? Well, could it be that because they're actually natural resources dug out of the ground, that being the planet itself? Gee, with that rationale, one may have thought that God put them there for our benefit. Yet again, however, these secular God haters have hoisted Mother Earth up itself as God. Yet where in reality, it is nature itself that bows its very feet at the feet of God who created it, and also the very one who holds it all together. For it is the Bible itself that tells us that it is God who's the creator. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and also that God delegated authority to mankind. Let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. And can we forget that it is Jesus who has authority over nature? For it was Jesus himself who calmed the very storms simply by rebuking it with his very words. And who else have you seen that could walk on water? And let us not forget what the book of John tells us. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And so those are the things, my friends, that we must remember. And especially for anyone out there today who is watching who doesn't know Jesus. For the world itself will end due to a series of planetary calamities. But it will not come from man's use of fossil fuels, but rather it will come from the almighty hand of God's wrath. For it is the Bible that tells us that at the end of days, a third of the trees will burn up, as well as a third of the sea will turn to blood, a third of the sea creatures will die, and a third of fresh water will become poison. Not to mention that the sun, moon, and stars will be dimmed by a third, and that there will be a great earthquake, that the sun will turn black like sackcloth, and the moon will turn red as blood, all while the stars fall from the earth, and that ultimately the earth itself will be consumed by fire, only to be restored and recreated anew by God via the new heaven and the new earth, in which those who know and love Jesus will live with him for eternity. And thus the only way that you can join the house of God is to first become a child of God, of which it was God who did all the heavy lifting so that you can be so. And as for what you need to do, well, that would be, you must admit that you are a sinner, believe that Jesus was raised from the dead, and call upon him for salvation. For God judges us, my friends, by his holy standard, of which is perfection. And therefore, if you don't meet the perfect standard, my good friends, then it's you who needs Jesus. Therefore, do not delay, for things are about to heat up. And if you wish to avoid it, it is you, my friends, who must receive Jesus Christ. For, my friends, there is no Mother Earth, but there definitely is a Father God. So, my friends, instead of living an eternal existence without God and without the light of God, please accept and receive God's Son, your Savior and Redeemer, that being Jesus Christ the Lord, again, the one who holds all things together. And with that said, that brings me to the end of another COP Climate Change recap. I hope you took something from it. And hey, if you're new to the channel, do me a favor. Comment, like, and subscribe to help me get the good news of this message as well as the gospel itself out to the world that so desperately needs it. And please do not forget to hit the bell notification as well as the subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with all of the latest episodes of Appointed to Promote TV. And therefore, I'll end today's program as I do all my programs, with my signature Bible verse and life verse, which comes to us from the book of Colossians, chapter 2 and verse 8, of which tells us, "See to it that you are not held captive by philosophy and empty deception, according to the traditions of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ." Therefore, until I see you next time, my friends, God bless.